Here we are at Butler's Orchard, just outside of Washington, D.C. I mean, just take a look around at this place. This is a gem, just about 40 miles outside of the heart of the nation's capital. And we have just acres and acres and acres of beautiful pumpkins. And this is Pumpkin 101. And we're here with Ben Butler. Where do you fall in the lineage of Butler's Orchard?
I'm a third generation. I'm the youngest of the third generation. My grandparents started it in 1950.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty about pumpkins.
Sure.
This pumpkin right here,
Yep.
when was this planted?
So these pumpkins are planted, I usually try to shoot for mid to early June.
Okay.
Depending on the varieties, some in 90 days to harvest, 100 days to harvest, depending on how big they're going to be and how many fruit they will produce. So we shoot for mid-June.
How many varieties of pumpkins do you guys grow here?
So I like to kind of keep things mixed up. So I probably throw 8 to 10 varieties in.
Okay.
Some small, some big, some with big stems, some with, small stems. Some, the long ones that people can make big wide faces on. So
Right.
we try to give people an option, so everyone's happy.
And the ideal growing condition for a pumpkin?
Oh, yeah, you're right, because if it gets too hot, they won't pollinate.
Right.
So I would say, 78 to low 80s.
All right, so here we have, in a row, we have all different sizes of pumpkins. And the one that you just had in your hand, I mean, this thing is huge. Is this just a product of being, left on the vine for longer, or what's up, man?
It's a special variety. This is actually called a Fat Jack. But no, this one, all the stems are about this thick on this variety. And you talked about, when do you plant? So some of the bigger pumpkins, so we grow, 200 to 300 pound pumpkins sometimes.
Yeah.
I start those in May.
Right.
So those need some more time and some more care.
Wait, hold on, time out. Did you say a 200 to 300 pound pumpkin?
Yeah.
That's a big pumpkin.
They're called prize winners.
No kidding.
Prize winners or Atlantic Giant. So it was bred here in the Mid-Atlantic.
Aside from the size difference, they all look very similar to me, but you're easily able to go ahead and pick out the different varieties right away.
I just had to grab this one because look at that stem. Like, this is one that I would take home.
That's a big daddy
sweet
stem right there.
But pumpkins are pretty low maintenance. You kind of let them ride and hope that the pollination sets and that the color comes along. But we had a good year, and like I said, I'm happy to send them home with kids to carve and enjoy, and for us to move on once November gets here.
This pumpkin right here, this would be a beautiful one to take home. Green stem still.
Green stem, yeah.
Very fresh, just beautiful, beautiful round. I mean, I think I could carve something really nice out of this big daddy. That's a serious, like if you've only bought pumpkins in the store, you're kind of missing out on this whole experience. Hey, look at that. I can barely fit my hand around the size of this stem. Here. So we talked about growing and the ideal conditions and the planting and the harvesting, and
I think something that's people get excited about. We sell pumpkins as early as September. And if you carve that pumpkin, there's no way it's going to make it until Halloween.
Now, so this is a good question. How long do you have once you carve that pumpkin? Once the knife goes in there, man, I mean, you're on a clock. How long is that clock? What's the countdown?
It depends on the weather and where it's sitting. So if it's sitting in the sunlight and it's 80 degrees outside, I would say you've got a week or less.
How many different varieties are there here, man? Because seriously, I'm looking around and I'm seeing at least a dozen, maybe 2 dozen?
Dozens.
Yeah, all right, so let's kind of take a walk through this here. It's not a pumpkin patch. I'm just gonna call this like a pumpkin mecca. I don't know what else to call this. Actually, let's start with the small ones, just so they don't get overlooked. Look at this one.
These are called wing
looks
gores.
fierce. Okay.
And these are great because they're super hardy. They're thick and solid, so less likely to rot on your front step or give you any problems. They're pretty solid and they'll last all the way through Thanksgiving. These are what they call the white small pumpkins here. Of course, in the sunlight, they start to lose their color, so they turn a little more yellow than white.
Are they called boo because they're white, maybe resemble a ghost?
The seed companies and the growers who develop these seeds, they get to name them whatever they want. So there's some odd names that come through, and it's kind of a fun thing. These are actually called pumpkimons.
No.
Pumpkimons.
As in Pokemon.
Correct. And we call these JBLs Jack B. Littles. But yeah, and they're all different, a little bit taller, kind of an odd cone shape. So anything from the standard, kind of a flat, traditional pumpkin look, to kind of an odd look. And that's the fun thing about these small ones, is that they're great for decorative. So the little kids, if they want a pumpkin that's maybe not a massive jack-o'-lantern, that's a little more expensive, they can take a few of these home and have one on their desk at school or even your desk at work to kind of remind you that it's fall and give you a little light in your morning, you know.
Now, is this just a traditional jack-o'-lantern pumpkin that was picked earlier? Is that why it's smaller, or is this a different variety altogether?
Specifically a different variety.
Okay.
And each plant on these, for these Jack B. Littles, will probably produce 20 to 30.
Oh, wow.
You know, little pumpkins.
Okay. Those are the big daddies. Over there.
Yeah. Specifically, some of these, they're called sugar or pie pumpkins, and they are what you'd find in your grocery store to make a pumpkin pie out of.
Okay, yeah, I am curious about the cooking process on this, because I think, you know, when people cook with pumpkin, I would think the vast majority of us are used to going and getting that can of pumpkin or that box of pumpkin puree.
Yeah.
I would assume that getting it fresh adds a whole other layer of flavor to it.
It does, and you know, I gotta say, I don't know if the last time I had a pumpkin pie that was out of a can, just because I'm spoiled.
You are spoiled.
I'm spoiled.
You're the exception,
Yeah.
sir. You are the exception to the rule.
Well, I think the big misconception is that people assume that your pumpkin pie mix comes from a pumpkin like this, a regular jack-o'-lantern. But really, the kind of the gourds and the squashes that are specifically bred for that flavor, what they use. And I know a lot in the Midwest, they harvest, the big farms harvest pumpkins for that filling, and it's not what you would think.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold, let me interrupt
Sure.
you. Is this the watermelon pumpkin? What in the heck is happening here? Look at this thing.
These are called goose gourds. They're the head fattens up a little bit, and it gives that look like a goose. So when I was
Look
a kid,
at that.
yeah. When I was a kid, we would let these dry out, drill a hole in the center here, and hang it for a birdhouse.
Insane.
Mm-hmm.
Bet it can taste completely different. Okay. Well,
The mellow yellow above us is a new variety this year. I didn't think it'd be a big seller because, you know, who wants a yellow pumpkin on Halloween? But we've been pretty successful with them.
I would imagine this would make a nice little, I mean, it's big, but a nice centerpiece for maybe Thanksgiving or
Yep.
something like that. So let me ask you, are these just decorative, or are these good for cooking?
Again, these are decorative.
Okay.
We'll get down the hill a little further here, and we'll have a couple more specialty edible things. Warties.
Yeah, do the kids gravitate to these, or like, ew, what is that?
Some of both. The varieties there are called warty goblin or goosebumps. And they're just something odd, you know. It is also a virus that was bred into these to give it those that odd look.
Yeah, I would think that would be a virus.
These are very similar to like a butternut squash.
I was just gonna say, it looks like a big butternut squash.
Great for cooking, you know, butters, pies, desserts. These are called Cinderella. It's a French heirloom variety, so it hasn't been touched by any breeders. Kind of, it's, you know, the standard that you would see, you know, 100 years ago maybe.
Right.
I cooked a pie with one of these Cinderellas. You can see kind of that orange flesh that's, you know, even though it lost its stem here, but it's a great color on the inside here. And again, just, you know, great for pie, any kind of winter recipe.
Let me ask, I mean, you see all different shades of orange here. Mm-hmm. The darker the orange, is that more, the sweeter the flesh is gonna be?
From what I've gathered over the years, yes. If I was picking one, go with something a little bit more of a dark red color.
Yeah,
you know?
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'll carry that.
Let me tell you what, good gracious. This is kind of green, but is it, you're saying like it's good for pie, so I'm assuming it has somewhat of a sweet flavor to it as well?
It does.
Now, these are odd looking.
Yeah, and I actually had a customer, the day that we brought these out of the field, she was waiting here for them.
Really?
And I said, how did you know we were, she's like, I was just hoping that you guys would have them because you're the only place around that has them. They're called turban squash or a Turk's turban.
Stop talking.
The peanut, yeah, right. The peanut, I'm running a little low on, but from what I've been told, the peanuts on the outside here are the sugars. So the more peanuts on the outside of the pumpkin, the more sugars there are.
Right. Named that because this looks like a peanut shell.
Absolutely.
Kind of surrounding it.
Yep.
The sign there notes that it has a long storage life. I'm assuming store in a refrigerator or store out?
Ideally, you know, a dark, cool basement. But if you want to hang on to it, keep it out of the sun, because that's really the fluctuation in temperatures is what makes it
Gotcha.
age and deteriorate.
Now, if it's stored in ideal conditions, would you say?
Through the spring.
Really?
Yeah.
But back into the store here, you guys have some nice pumpkin offerings as well, right?
Oh man.
Why don't we go take a look? How about that? Is that-
Sure.
So we walk around the corner here, and now we do have hand soap, pumpkin spice hand soap. You know, that's the thing. People, they just go crazy for pumpkin everything. You know, it turns fall, man. It's like, as soon as Labor Day hits, and it's like, bam, it's pumpkin everything. And so sure enough, we have moisturizing hand soap, pumpkin spice.
It's true. And if you don't want to do all the work of, making your own, we sell a pretty dang good pie.
A dang good pie made here on premise?
Cooked here on the premise. Actually used this exact recipe just to see, if this sticker is a good enough pie for us to be recommending. Well, pretty simple ingredients there and directions, and it turned out pretty good.
Well, Ben, I cannot thank you enough. I've learned so much about pumpkins today. Who knew that there was, you think pumpkin, you always just think about the standard orange pumpkin,
Yep.
but you've shown dozens of varieties in all shapes, all sizes, all colors, some with warts, some with not. Just unbelievable. Thank you so much for the lesson.
Thank you for coming. We're happy to share, and it's a special time of year around here because we really love pumpkins and sharing the wealth.
Butler's Orchard, it's the place to be.